Hi everyone, thanks for being with me. Don't know what happened to my intro there. That's a bit puzzling, but there we go. I've done it anyway. But sometimes these things just don't work as one would expect them to. But I'm glad you could be with me to talk about something that I think is interesting, but you may not. But who cares? Here at my show, I want to have a discussion around conspiracy theories and how conspiracy theories have impacted our lives, that there are many millions of people who subscribe to these particular beliefs. And there's a bloke I've been following, which is Graham, whatever his name is, who refers to himself as the guru. I've spoken about him before. I just am a bit bemused by someone who would refer to themselves as a guru and wonder what sort of narcissistic quality and trait that engenders. But there again, that's the way he refers himself. That's the way people know him. I'm just going to refer to him as Graham. I won't use an abusive language here, but he's different, to say the least. Now, he has a show that he and Mel run on, I think it's Mel or Kaz, I don't know who it is, on BitChute. And they're entertaining, to say the least. And recently they've had, in the last one, which was a day or so ago, they had Pastor Paul Robert Burton, another guy that fascinates me. Don't dislike him, really. I think he's got a lot of valuable things to say, but there are certain things that are way bizarre, that are sovereign citizen-based, QAnon-informed, and consequently, one needs to challenge some of these particular beliefs because they are, to say the least, odd. So I'm going to play a clip, and this is just to demonstrate to you, I think, where some of these beliefs come from, why they are in play, and that they come from nowhere, and that they develop into, and people take them and accept them, and then turn them into something which is odd, to say the least, and turns them into something that they believe has some credibility. Now, I'm not here to say that there are no such things as conspiracies. I know there are plenty of conspiracies around that are proven to be true, but then there are some that are built on blatant nothing and then turn into something. So people accept them, they believe in the general concept that all politicians are pedophiles, for example, all judges are pedophiles, all police are corrupt. This notion around all or nothing is really where they tend to come from. So, and, you know, I am one of those that would suggest that perhaps there is a degree of corruption in all areas of society, and certainly amongst politicians and police and everywhere else. We know that it exists. I'm not here to deny any of that. I'm here to actually let us know that perhaps there are times when we should be looking for the positives in many things as opposed to just focusing on the negatives. But these people want to focus on the bizarre rather than on what is quite real. So I've got a couple of examples of that. I'm just going to play a short excerpt from from BitChute, when we're looking at this thing that's got with Guru and Mel, and for you to make up your own mind as to how crazy crazies are. Here we go.
About with kids as well. I just thought I'd bring in these because I found this really disturbing. This is with the five Canadian teenagers aged between 17 and 19 died suddenly in their sleep in the past month. Now that is just this past month.
Yeah.
Now there's way more than that. It seems to be that
Now, okay. So they say there's way more than that. They have no evidence to prove that there are way more than that. And this particular, I'll show you where this came from in a moment, and then we can perhaps analyse as to whether or not. I'll let them. Actually, what I'll do is I'll let them finish first. So let's challenge. There's way more than that. You don't know that. That's bullshit. So, but it's a handy thing to be able to say because it fits in, I guess, with their conspiratorial nature. But let's see what else they have to say.
There's a war on children here.
Well, I suppose they'll call that sudden teenage death syndrome, like some other strange condition we've never heard of before, because we're hearing these stories everywhere. And I know people personally that have passed not long after these inoculations. So that evidence is there, and again, the media's just hiding it. Cats, they're hiding it from...
I don't know, Paul, whether or not you're shitting to us or what you're doing, but, anybody could say, I know lots of people that are passed. You probably don't. What's lots of people? One or two? And is it all about having a vaccine and therefore you pass away? Who knows? But it seems to be easy to be able to make these broad generalised statements and without any proof or any evidence whatsoever, because on this particular case, I'll just show you if I can find it. Here it is. This is where it came from. It came from Jamie Sale. Now, if we look up Jamie Sale, I'm not following her, thank God. World champion, Olympic gold medalist, freedom fighter, Canadians for Truth. She's only got 529 followers, so she's not all that crash hot. I think I've got more than that. But the issue is, I guess, that she is a nobody, but she flashes up this thing that's come from Makers MD at substack.com. And when you bring them up, the story that they have, I'm just wondering whether I've got it here. The story that they have is one whereby there's nothing on the page whatsoever. Absolutely nothing. There's no follow-up story. There's no in-depth investigation. What we saw on this page, on this Facebook page, is all that there is. That's it. Yet from that, they've constructed this idea that these kids have done. We don't even know who these kids are. We don't know the degree to which there's any element of truth or anything in what it is that they're saying. However, for some bizarre reason, this develops into a conspiracy that we must adhere to because someone somewhere in the ether has stated that this is the case. Now, I'm just going to play a little bit more of my mate Paul because he does say some bizarre things, and as he says them, I will highlight whether or not I necessarily agree with them as well.
From the public, they're hiding this stuff from the public. It's just shocking. In my view, it's almost like the media are the most culpable of them all, because if the public were to know the truth, then they'd be able to do something. But there's too many cases to be, it's out of control. I mean, I have no doubt that this inoculation is not a good thing, and it's serving certainly some very other devious purpose. And everyone's still...
Okay, what's the devious purpose? I've got no idea what the fuck he's talking about. And that the media... So this is the other interesting thing about these dudes, is the mainstream media, which is the media from which most of us get our information, I guess, even though I don't like some of the mainstream media myself because I do believe that they're extremely biased. We've got the Murdoch presses, no doubt that they're biased. And we've got some liberal press that's also biased. And we've got organisations like Crikey and others that are definitely biased. So I understand all of that. I understand that we all live in our bubble and that we interpret our world according to what's being fed into that bubble. But then I think there are some of us, and hopefully I'm one of them, where we're rational enough to be able to say, well, this kind of fits with me and I understand this, and what's the source for all of this, and what information can we gather from what it is that we're experiencing, and does that fit with our own values? And it's clear that with a lot of these sovereign citizen people and these conspiracy theorists, is they have a set of values that basically say, I think, that everything is corrupt, that they're being mind controlled by the deep state and by politicians and others, and that they need to push back against that because they're the ones with the information. They're the ones with the truth. So I don't know why they are the arbiters to truth, and perhaps I'm not, or somebody else with a different opinion isn't an arbiter for truth. But if we have our version of truth, I will accept that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the full truth either. Happy to have a conversation. I'd love to have a conversation on my channel with Paul. I think he's a decent bloke, endeavouring to do what he needs to do. As for Guru David, I couldn't give a shit about him because he calls himself a guru to start with. And Pastor Paul, Paul, are you really a pastor, or you just didn't name a pastor because you sort of set up a church? I mean, what's that all about? Don't know. Love to ask him. Love to have him on this show so we can talk about some of this stuff. Want an open discussion about what's happening in our world that impacts people like Paul, like Mel, like Kaz, whoever it is that does these shows. But we need to be able to, I think, evaluate things just a wee bit differently. So there's this other article which I'm going to show you. Anti-vaxxers rally behind women denied transplant and platformed by Nine's Today Show. So this woman was denied a transplant because she wouldn't she wouldn't be vaccinated. So as a result of that, she was denied a transplant. So the question really is, what was there medically that would have prevented her from having a transplant? The answers to me are quite logical, but in this jerk, I don't watch much free-to-air, so I'm not familiar with many of these people, but whatever his name is, the Stefanovic, he has become kind of an anti-vaxxer, I think, is the way it appears. So I'll just show you this article, and you decide. Was told, Dr. Nick Coatsworth was told he'll be talking to a patient using anti-vax rhetoric as the Today episode was about to go to air. Moments before going live on Nine's Today program, a doctor found out he was featuring a segment titled No Jab, No Heart, alongside a woman who claims she's denied a heart transplant because of COVID-19 vaccination mandates. So the February 13th episode of Today, which attracted some 191,000 viewers, good for you, according to TV ratings information, featured a segment in which host Carl Stefanich introduced a Greaves patient, Vicky Dearderum, as ineligible for a heart transplant due to her unvaccinated COVID-19 status. Now, I agree that in itself is worth noting. Something has happened. Heart transplant, big deal. It's about as major an operation as you can get, and she was declined. And she's arguing she was declined just on the basis that she was discriminated against because she chose to be unvaccinated. There's a couple of issues there for me. You know, if you're going for something as serious as a heart operation that is going to, no way of describing it apart from this, it's going to save your life. You know, it's going to extend your life for, 20 years maybe. So why? And you're allowing the vaccination or your beliefs around not being vaccinated, you're allowing that to prohibit you from going ahead. The doctor's saying that you need to be vaccinated. And they offered reasons why you need to be vaccinated. And I think these reasons are pretty damn good. So Crikey looked into this, and they found out that Dr. Nick Coatsworth, he fielded claims from Dearderum and Stefanovic explaining the medical protocols and decision-making behind the Alfred Hospital transplant team's decision to donate a new heart. He said, the biggest risk to you is when we hit your immune system like that. If you get COVID-19 without having the vaccine, there's a really significant risk that you'll die and that organ will die with you. Now, so he goes on to say, the vast majority of Australians would agree with her anti-vax stance. But regardless, in this post-pandemic world, these Australians would also probably say, what does it now matter if she is unvaccinated if she requires the surgery? The interview was picked up by Daily Telegraph, blah, blah, blah. The guidelines published in October 2022 make clear many factors can exclude a person from receiving a transplant, including acute medical conditions, complicated diabetes, and a non-compliance with recommended pre-transplantation vaccinations. And it goes on to say, you'd rather they don't die because it's a waste of an organ. So they only have 120 organs or something like that. They have a limited number, obviously, of organs available for thousands of possible transplant patients. And so oh, look, I was busy doing that and trying to read that to you, and I didn't have it up on the screen. I apologise for that. But the reality is that there's so many people that are wanting these transplant operations that the doctors can't risk you dying and losing that heart when there are so many other people who could benefit from the heart that you've had, which you've destroyed because you've chosen not to be vaccinated. You get COVID, it destroys the heart, your immune system's gone anyway. There's a greater chance of you contracting COVID, clearly, if your immune system is compromised. So that's, to me, so why do we turn that into a conspiracy theory? Buggered if I know. And the final story that I want to talk about is actually about David Graham. So David Graham's the guru dude, and this is about this. So he went to court yesterday, poor bastard. But anyway, he did. And so the conspiracy theorist accused of intimidating 2GB worker when Ben Fordham refused to let him on a radio faces court after being arrested inside his bizarre boat home. So this is a story about, and he's posted about this as well, whereby he insisted on going on the Ben Fordham show to talk about his bizarre conspiracy theories. Right now, Ben has every right to say, bugger off, mate. I don't believe in what you're doing. I don't want to be able to express those views. I don't want to give you a voice to those views. Stick to your channel on whatever it is, shoot, and do your thing, because I don't want to be a party to any of the crap that you talk about. Now, that's his choice, because it's his bloody show. But David, the self-confessed guru, got a little upset by that, apparently, and he kept on ringing the show, and he kept on making an absolute nuisance of himself. I don't know why. They just didn't hear his voice and hang up, to be quite honest. But he persisted and persisted with this, and to the point whereby it obviously became very distressing to either the receptionist, whoever was on the phone, taking these calls from him. And so let's talk a little bit more about what happened. So a conspiracy theorist has arrived at court surrounded by supporters after he allegedly stalked and harassed 2GB worker over being refused an interview. Now, I don't know what the idea is about having a host of your supporters there. I guess that makes you feel good. So he would have felt really comfortable with the fact that he had all these wonderful people, 20, 30 people, whatever it was around him, all supporting him. So as a result of that, he would have felt damn important. Well, good for you, because I don't think it did an ounce of good for you in terms of your court case, buddy. But anyway, he felt good about that. David Graham, a sovereign citizen who calls himself Guru, was arrested in Wollongong, south of Sydney on Friday after allegedly intimidating a radio worker. So we don't know whether that was Ben who was intimidating or whether it was necessarily someone of the staff. Daily Mail Australia understands the charges related to Graham allegedly repeatedly harassing a 2GB staff member over the phone. So that might have been the receptionist, whoever took those calls. On January 30th, after he was refused a spot on Fordham's prize. What makes you think you deserve a spot? Like, why do you? I mean, because you call yourself a guru, does that make you somehow more important than anybody else? I think there's an issue really around. So you must get, now, is this about you must get your message out there, as crazy as it is, or is it about your ego that needs to be fed this stuff continually, you know. I'm going with the latter. I think you're a self-absorbed, crazy person who must express yourself because you are bizarre. So, and you've got this ego, basically. So it goes on to say, if the interview did not happen for any reason, Graham told his followers to call, email 2GB demanding that he be put on the air. And it fascinates me that these dudes criticise the media and criticise politicians and police and everybody else for the authority and power that they have. Yet in a bizarre sort of way, they're demanding that same sort of authority and power. You know, I'd hate to see what would happen if ever a group of these people ever got into power. How chaotic things would be. And that they would have police force and they would have that would be dominating and controlling the population. Like the very things I've often said, and I'll say it again, that a lot of what these people do is simply projection. They're projecting their own desire for power and authority. They're projecting often their own sexual insecurities and their own and stuff through this pedophilic stuff. So heaven only knows what it says if it's projection about their own thoughts around pedophilia. I'm not suggesting they're pedophiles, but what does it tell us about their projection of the things that they are concerned about, which reflect on them as opposed to what they're specifically projected to others? So I do wonder about that. It's something, food for thought, I guess. Callers to 2GB reportedly told the producers Graham should be allowed on, but Fordham said he had not been promised a spot on his show and suggested he change his medication. Oh, I'm with him on that one. Fordham also said some sovereign citizen movement followers were upset because apparently I have been making fun of them. The radio host said he thought he would support them because he opposed lockdowns and vaccine mandates during the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, I'm happy to give them some assistance in finding a good therapist, he says. And David Graham goes on to complain that they took a whole lot of stuff from his home. So I guess what we wind up with these instances are people, now they have the right to say whatever they want to say. They have the right to be able to express themselves in whichever way they want to express themselves. I understand that, as I do here on my channel. And good on them, I reckon. You know, I admire them for doing what they do. I admire people who, no matter which side of the spectrum they're on, who talk about the issues that matter to them. I admire that. What I don't admire is that when you take a story like the one I mentioned earlier about those 5 young Canadian guys, and you transform it, I should say, into a overarching story that fits with your narrative, and it's untrue, then there's an issue. Because you're selling a goods that is unreal, unrealistic, and is a lie. You know, when you think of things like the robo-debt, for example, and we see what's happening in relation to all these people going before the Commission and talking about the stupid decisions that the government made, I think that degree of transparency is good. We know they make stupid decisions. We know that they're corrupt in certain areas, not all of them. We know that they make decisions regardless of the opinions offered to them by the legal profession, because they see it is in their best interest politically. That happens all the time. And they get caught out eventually. Eventually they often get caught out. And that's the beauty of our system, is that there may not be transparency within the government directly, but later on there often is, because people stuff up. We saw that in regard to what's been happening in New South Wales in terms of LCAC and a lot of other things. There's lots of examples where that actually does happen. We saw it in relation to the institutionalised the abuse of children in institutions and the Royal Commission that was taking place in relation to that. And I know that a lot of these things happen years and years after the event, but they do happen. And we have a system that will find those fallacies out and bring them to the fore and provide an opportunity for us all to talk about them. Now, what I'd like you to do is contact me if you'd like to, and also I would like to think that if I can find it, no, I can't. Ring the bell. If you wouldn't mind, let us know that you'd like to continue and subscribe to my channel for further conversations such as these. So thanks everybody for being with me. Take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.